Hello, everyone. Happy New Year to you all, and thank you for joining us for our very first Discover Day for the year. My name is Philandra, and I'm currently working as a Senior Student Ambassador in our Office of Student Recruitment and Admissions. Joining me today, we also have Jaskaran, who you will be learning a lot more about today as he takes us on a personalized tour of our beautiful campus. In the chat, we also have Yvonne, who is one of our recruitment officers. She will be here to answer any questions you have during the presentation, but please stay tuned until the end where we will be doing a live Q&A session. And for bringing this Discover Day to you live, we have Austin, who is a part of our communications team and will be responsible for presenting all the beautiful visuals and transitions you will see today. So now that you're familiar with all of us, I will give you a brief introduction to our campus before handing things over to Jaskaran. So for now, let's say bye to Jaskaran. Okay, so the University of Toronto, Mississauga is currently home to over 180 programs that span more than 90 areas of study. These programs are brought to our students by 18 As of current, 17,300 undergraduate students are studying within our programs, and of these, 12,800 are students from across Canada, and 4,500 are international students arriving from across over 130 different countries. Not only do we have great stats on our current students, but we also keep track of our past graduates. Currently, we have 74,000 alumni thriving in their industries across over 110 countries. Additionally, more than 900 of our students have completed their bachelor's degrees and are now pursuing graduate studies, which may include master's programs, PhD programs, or other professional schools. So with all the options you have when you start your post-secondary journey, you may be asking yourself, why U of T Mississauga? Well, our campus is an excellent starting point for your career. There are lots of opportunities for students to gain early access to career exploration through experiential learning and professional skills development, which provide the tools needed for graduate studies and, most importantly, entry into your desired workforce. There are also lots of opportunities to gain hands-on learning. From first year onwards, students can participate in labs, research opportunities, seminar classes, co-op internships, and more, going beyond the setting of the traditional classroom. You also have connections to both Mississauga and Toronto, both figuratively and literally. Our St. George campus and the City of Toronto are just a shuttle bus ride away, giving you the advantage of building a network across all three U of T campuses. Once you are here, your opportunities are endless. The world is yours. Our programs have excellent global reputations, and we offer a variety of international opportunities that help you stay connected not just within Canada, but beyond our national borders if you desire. Our campus is also uniquely surrounded by nature and has several green spaces and trails. These natural surroundings really amplify the academic experience and remind our students of the importance of well-being. Most importantly, once you're here, you will be supported by an excellent team of experts dedicated to helping you navigate your academics. Even after you complete your degree, support systems remain in place to help you navigate your next steps. We also offer wellness services and mentorship programs that create opportunities for peer-to-peer support and a community invested in your success. So that's it from me for now. Now that you have a window into what we have to offer here at U of T Mississauga, I will now reintroduce Jaskaran for a campus tour.
All right, so hi everybody. My name is Jaskaran, and I am a third-year student here at the University of Toronto, Mississauga, and I'm doing a biology specialist. Another thing about me is that I am also a student ambassador at the Office of Student Recruitment and Admissions. So before we start our virtual tour, I am going to do a little bit of an about me so you guys can learn a little bit more about me and the things I've done. So let's just get that going. So a little bit about me is first off, I'm a huge science person, obviously being in the biology program. So here's a picture of a research poster I did last summer in the summer 2024. And I'll be explaining more about research posters and opportunities later on in the tour, but this is just a little tidbit of things I've been able to do during my time here. Another thing about me is I'm also really into photography and nature, kind of goes along with the biology side. So here's a picture I took of cherry blossoms at Hyde Park just a couple months ago. And then the three pictures on the bottom, I am really into travel as well. So here's a picture of the Mona Lisa in Paris and also the Chapel Bridge in Lucerne, Switzerland. I do have a lot of other dream destinations. In the moment, I really want to go to Japan and Costa Rica. And then finally, probably my most fun thing, more of a hobby, is movies. I'm a huge cinephile, if you will. This picture here is from Hamnet, which I watched in Toronto last December over the winter break, and it was absolutely amazing. So if you ever need movie recommendations, I'm your guy. So with that being said, we will start the tour at the Kneff Center. So let's get going. So here we are starting off at our Kneff Center. So the first thing I want to mention here is in the top right, you see this picture of this office. And this is actually the office of the registrar, and also it's connected to the Office of Student Recruitment and Admissions. So these two offices are depending on whether you are going to be a prospective student, which all of you are right now, or a current student. Starting with Student Recruitment and Admissions, we are the people who help with anything related to your application. So if you have questions about maybe your tuition deposit, or you have questions about when you will hear back on time, we are the people you would talk to. And then in terms of the Office of the Registrar, those are the people you talk to when you're currently enrolled. So they can help you with course selection, program selection, any of your current finances, and even career opportunities. And they're an extremely helpful group of people. You can very easily just submit a ticket online on our website, and they'll be able to help you out. I've been able to talk to them about many different things throughout my university career, and they're extremely knowledgeable, and there's never a huge wait. They're extremely good at their job. The other thing I want to show at the bottom right is the outside of the Kneff Center. So Kneff Center is really close to our bus stop. So a big thing with UTM is a lot of students do take the bus and do commute to the school. So it being right in front of the bus stop is pretty handy. And another thing, being a UTM student, is that you do get a free MyWay bus pass. So it is included in your tuition, which is obviously really great because MyWay buses are all used at UTM. And the final thing I wanted to point out with this building is this tunnel here. So one really nice thing about UTM is that it's very easy to get around the whole campus in about 10 minutes. It's a really small campus, but it gets that liveliness of a large campus. And it's also really easy to traverse while remaining indoors. As everyone knows, Canada's weather can be pretty spotty. It can get really cold and wintry, or there's also a lot of rain. So being able to stay inside most of the time is really convenient. And this tunnel here leads us from the Kneff Center into the Davis building, which will be our next building right now. So here we are at the William G. Davis building, commonly known as Davis. And like the quick fact said, this is the largest building on campus. So this building is connected to a lot of other little pockets around campus. And the main things I wanted to highlight here were, one, the big food court. So on the bottom right, we do have an aerial view of the food court. And this is the most popular study spot, hangout spot at UTM. Whenever you're on campus, this place is packed to the brim with students, and it's a really nice energy, a really nice vibe. And off to the side, we do have a lot of really popular food stops. So we do have the main Tim Hortons here, which the line gets really, really long. And then we also have a Thai Express, a Harvey's, and also a bunch of unique specialty stops. So we do have some salad bars and a burrito bowl bar. And we also have a lot of sushi throughout in the freezer section. So there's a lot of different food options here depending on your tastes. Off to the other side of the food court, we have the Student Services Hub, which is a newly renovated place that helps support you in when it comes to things like accessibility. So if you need accessibility or you want to volunteer, they're the people you reach out to. The Career Center. So if you ever have questions about your career after university or making a resume and cover letter, they're the people you reach out to. And also things like the International Education Center. So if you're interested in any sort of summer abroad course, then they're the people you can talk to. Speaking about that, one of the greatest things about UTM is just the amount of opportunities you have here as a student, especially because it is a smaller university, so it is less competitive for these really cool opportunities, and you get to buff up your resume and make sure you're really impressive for grad school, professional school, or any sort of anything in the workforce. And another thing I wanted to point out was the Davis Building is home to all of the labs for the biology and chemistry students. So if you are someone who's going into life sciences or chemical and physical sciences, you will be spending a lot of time in the Davis Building. Here's a picture of the introductory bio labs. So if you're going to be taking bio 152 and 153, you will have lab courses here. And as someone who has taken these courses before, it's a really fun course. The labs are very interesting and help you learn a lot about how to do science, not just performing experiments, but learning how to be a scientist, skills that you will take into your second, third, and fourth years and when you're out of undergrad. And you also get a lot of cool volunteer opportunities. I've been able to TA and be a lab assistant with these labs. So once again, pointing back to how many opportunities there are for students, no matter your program. And with that, we will be moving on to the RAWC, which is connected to the Davis Building. So here we are at the Recreation, Athletics, and Wellness Center, commonly known as The Rock, and all the athletics related things you will find here. So like I said, this is connected to Davis. It's literally just down the stairs from the main food court. And you're going to find the main thing is going to be the 2-floor gym here. And access to this gym is free. It's included in your tuition. So all UTM students have access to it. And it's a great gym and it has all the equipment you would ever need. If you're someone who's more into specialty training, such as swimming or dance, we do also have swimming pools and a dance studio. And the dance studio is a picture right here. And what's really nice about the dance studio in specific is you can either be part of the UTM dance club, or you can also book it out recreationally if that's something you're interested in. We also have a huge gym AB, which you see in this kind of long vertical image. And here we run a lot of intramural sports, or a lot of clubs will have specialty basketball nights or volleyball nights here. And you can feel free to sign in and take part in those as well. Another thing that happens in Gym AB is, as you see all these tables lined up here during December and April when exams are happening, especially for those large first-year courses, a lot of students will be taking exams in this gym. So it seems pretty daunting just seeing all these tables just lined up here all menacingly, because it's a very big space. But I promise you, it's not that scary and you will get perfectly used to it. And with that being said, we will be moving on to our next building, which is the CCT building. So here we are at the CCT building, and CCT stands for Communications, Culture, and Technology. So like I said before, a lot of these buildings are interconnected. So CCT, there is a little roof panel that does connect Davis to CCT. So once again, pointing out how it's so easy to traverse the school without being impacted by the elements. And the main thing about CCT is CC 1080. So you see this long vertical image here. CC 1080 is the largest lecture hall on campus, and it seats 500 students. And most likely, if you are in first year, you will have a course in this lecture hall, whether it's a lecture or you write a test in here. It's almost like a rite of passage for all UTM students, because the lecture hall in specific is more old school. So it's kind of this nice community you build with all your students, and it's a really fun time. The other thing I wanted to point out is the Tim Hortons Express. So as I mentioned, in the Davis building, there is the main Tim Hortons where the line gets very, very long. This Tim Hortons Express is exclusively cold items. So if you want a hot coffee or a donut or a croissant, you can get it here. And what's really nice about the Express Tim Hortons is that the line is almost never long. It's almost empty half the time. So It's really convenient, especially if you're in the mood for a hot item. The final thing I wanted to mention about the CCT building is the IT desk. So these are the people who will help you out with anything relating to your tech issues, whether you can access Quarkus or Acorn, which are things you'll learn about when you are enrolled in the university, or when you need to get your your ID card, which is known as the T card here at UTM. And they're once again really knowledgeable people. They know a lot of what they're doing. I've been able to ask them for help many times, and they're able to help me just like that. It's a really great service, and I would highly recommend speaking out to them whenever you need to. And with that being said, we will be moving on to the library, which, like every other building, is connected to CCT. So here we are at the Hazel McCallion Academic Learning Center, commonly known as the library. And like I said, this is connected to CCT. So the main things you will find in the library are, one, you will have a lot of computer access. So one of the great things about UTM is they have a very great online library. So one thing you'll notice is in first year, you will have to take a lot of courses in which you have to cite primary research articles or something of the sort. So having such a great library of articles to pick from is really convenient and allows you to do really well on your assignments. The other thing I want to point out is right outside the library is the one of two Starbucks on campus. So this little section of the campus does get pretty busy. And I also wanted to point out the study rooms here. So the library is one of two buildings here that have a lot of study rooms, and in the library specifically, they're on all 3 floors. And what's really cool about the library study rooms is that they're actually open 24 hours a day. So one thing you'll notice is during exam season, a lot of people will actually be here overnight. So I don't recommend doing like an overnight studying session here, but it is fun to point out. Other thing you'll notice is the front desk. And here you can obviously ask any sort of informational services, but also you can rent out electronics, chargers, whatever you may need. So this is the service I use the most at the library, especially because I forget my charger all the time. And it's a really seamless process. It's completely free, and you just get it for every 3 hours. So it's, once again, it's a really nice process. And finally, you can also print here. So these are one of 2 locations where you can print at the university, both in color and not in color. And it's a pretty cheap price. You just have to load money into your T card, and then you'll be able to print completely fine. And once again, similar to all the other services I mentioned, everyone who works at the library is very knowledgeable and is very helpful, and will be able to help you out in a pinch whenever you need it. And with that being said, we will be moving on to our next building, which is IB. So this is the instructional center, also known as IB, and this is my personal favorite building for one reason, and that is it has Subway and Casada. And I'm a pretty picky eater, so these are the only 2 places I eat at. But if these are also your favorite places, then you'll also most likely spend a lot of time in this building. One thing to note about IB is that they have a lot of these smaller classrooms aside from big lecture halls. There is one big lecture hall, IB 110, which you can see at the bottom right. And as you can see, it's much more modern compared to like CC 1080. And it's honestly a really nice lecture hall. A lot of my friends from other universities get really jealous by it. But like I said, another thing you'll see is a lot more smaller classrooms on the 2nd and 3rd floor. And these are reserved for things known as tutorials. So one thing you notice when you're in university is you will have your lectures with 300 to 500 students, but then all of you will be divvied up into smaller classes with about 25 to 40 students. And in these little tutorials, you will be going over content you've been learning throughout the week, or depending on the course, you may be doing specialty assignments and stuff. For example, when I was taking the introductory chemistry course, we used tutorial time to either do quizzes or go over lab procedures for the lab that we had later on in the day. So it's very versatile. It really just depends on your course. Some courses don't even have tutorials, but one thing I can count on is most people will have a class in IB. There's no real bias towards any sort of program in this building, which is pretty nice because, like I said, it's a really nice building. Another thing here is you will see a lot more study rooms similar to the library. And once again, these are things you can book out in advance on the library website. And why I say in advance is because they do fill up pretty quickly. Another cool thing about IB is that it's a very sustainable building. As you saw in the quick facts, the whole building is powered using geothermal energy capture. And also, the inside of the building, there's lots of green walls, and those are made out of recycled materials, which is pretty cool. Two final fun facts. One is that on the roof of IB, there is a bunch of beehives which help make UTM honey, which can be sold at the convenience store, which I will touch on later on in the tour. And finally, one thing you'll find at IB is right outside the door, which is near IB 110, is a shuttle bus that will take you from UTM to St. George. And one really cool thing about the shuttle bus is that it's completely free for UTM students. It's not free for the other campuses. So you're able to do a round trip completely free from UTM to St. George and back. And it's really nice because that allows you to take more courses at St. George. So if St. George has a courses that they don't offer here, that just adds to your whole educational experience. With that being said, we will be moving on to our next building, MN. So here is MN, and its full name is Manjue Nandamoanan. So this is it translates to Gathering of Minds, and it does so because it honors the fact that this school is built on the Mississauga of the first credit. So the main thing I wanted to point out with MN was similar to IB, there was a lot more tutorial rooms here, so a lot of smaller rooms. You won't see any huge lecture hall like IB 110 or CC 1080 here. And another thing you'll notice is a lot of the computer science kids and also a lot of social science kids and humanities kids will be here because a lot of their classes tend to be here. A lot of the specialty computer science classrooms are on the first floor, which is pretty interesting. So if you are going into any of those programs, you'll find yourself here a lot. One thing I wanted to point out with MN is a lot of educational conferences and events happen here. So as you can see on the top image, this is me presenting my research poster at a research stage in the summer of 2024. And these are things you won't find just in summer. You'll find them all throughout the school year. And it's really nice to walk into the building and see all these cool things that UTM students are up to. So UTM is a very research focused university, as with all of U of T. So a lot of students are doing really unique research. If you told me before I started here that I would be able to study different clams that were collected all across the coast of Canada, I wouldn't believe you, but it's done. And it was really fun and a great way to get experiential learning while doing my degree. The other thing I wanted to focus on was the RGASC, or the Robert Gillespie Academic Skills Center. And this center does two main things. One, they offer a lot of writing help. So if you're in a writing heavy course, even if you're not, if you're in biology, you'll most likely have to write a lot of lab reports. This center will help you enhance your writing skills so you can do well in those assignments. Another thing they offer are FSGs, also known as facilitated study groups. And these are study classes that run week by week for usually larger first year and second year classes that are seen as notoriously difficult. And what studies have shown is that students who join these weekly study groups actually get grades 4% higher than average. In fact, I do run study groups for a course called ENV 100, which is the Introductory Environmental Science course. And it's really nice seeing all the students come out because not only do you learn the content that you've been learning in class, you also learn a lot of really good study strategies that may be specific to the course, but also can be very transferable to other courses and overall boost your university experience. So that in mind, we will be going on to our final instructional building, Deerfield Hall. So here is Deerfield Hall, and if you're wondering why it's called Deerfield, it's because of the fact that there were so many deer on campus, especially around the side of Deerfield and MN. So here you can see on the bottom right this picture of a deer I took just a couple of weeks ago. They're really cute. It's almost like another rite of passage at UTM. How many deer can you see throughout your time here? And another thing you'll notice with Deerfield is the second Starbucks is here if you're interested. And also a lot of the psychology labs and computer science labs are in this specific building. So if you're interested in any of those two programs, you'll most likely find yourself here a lot. The other thing I wanted to point out with Deerfield Hall is that we do have the Math Learning Center here, and that's on the second floor. So another thing you'll notice when you do come into university, no matter what program you're in, you're most likely going to have to take some sort of math or statistics course, whether you like to or not. And the Math Learning Center is a great place to get extra help with those usually difficult courses. As obviously, a lot of people tend to struggle with math or get a bit frightened by it. But I promise you, these are really amazing TAs who are putting in their own time to help you out. And these are people who are TAing certain courses. So they know the ins and outs of the course and how to properly tutor you. With that being said, we will be going on to our final stop at the Student Center. And this is not an instructional building, but it's pretty cool nonetheless. So here we are on our last stop, and this is the Student Center. So the main things I wanted to point out here is that one, it is run by the UTM Student Union. And with that being said, a lot of clubs are kind of formed here and run a lot of their events here. So you can see on this long vertical image, a picture of the Mental Health Student Association charity walk. So I'm actually part of this club and I help plan this event. And these are just one of the many events that you'll see in this building. You'll see an event almost every single day here. And this ranges from fundraisers, presentations, big like club almost events. And it's really cool. You get to interact with a lot of students here and kind of get a feel more for the campus vibe, which is something I really enjoy. Another thing to note about the Student Union is they do have the specialty pub, the Blind Duck here. So this is the UTM special restaurant, and they do serve a lot of different foods here, and they're all really tasty and also a really great price. So if you're always looking for something to eat, I'd highly recommend the Blind Duck. And finally, we do have the Duck Stop. So this is the convenience store I mentioned earlier when we were talking about IB. So here you can get a bunch of little snacks, school supplies, or also the specialized UTM honey here. And with that, that actually concludes the entire tour. So I hope you all enjoyed learning about UTM. And with that being said, we are going to bring back Philandra so we can continue on to the Q&A portion.
Thank you, Jaskaran, for the tour. I'll be sure to message you after this for some movie recommendations. Now that we have concluded the tour, we will be answering some of the common questions that were brought up during the course of the presentation. Okay, so from Phoebe, we have, hello, what is the cutoff this year for the top 6 high school average for computer science? So I believe you're asking about the admission criteria for computer science itself. So what does that consist of? So from my head, I do believe it, of course, includes the average for English. So a senior level English is mandatory for all our courses here. For computer science, you also do have your supplementary applications. So in addition to your academic average, which I do believe is mid to high 80s, correct me if I'm wrong, Yvonne, that will be taken into consideration. In addition, you also have your advanced function and your calculus and vectors. So you'll have those courses, and then the next 3 courses will be chosen by our admissions team, and those would consolidate your average. So we do recommend that students aim higher than the recommended average for that admission category. So if it says mid to high 80s and you want to have that competitive edge, we'll usually recommend that you aim to have an average that is higher than that. Jaskaran, is there anything that you'd like to add to this answer?
No, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I can answer the next question if we are good to go. So does UTM offer co-op for psychology? So at the moment, there is no co-op specifically for the psychology program. However, the psychology department does offer a lot of thesis and internship courses in your 3rd and 4th year. So that way you are able to get a lot of that experiential education, and you're not like kind of missing out, which is a really nice thing. And I mentioned it during the tour. That's one of the great things about UTM. There's so many ways to add to your resume and do really cool things during your time here. Like no matter what program you're in, you're all given ample opportunity to do really great things. So that research poster I did, those are things you can do in the psychology department. And you can also be working with the Philandra police department and so much more. So one of my friends is doing a psychology specialist. She did an internship with the PO police, which is pretty darn cool. So yeah, no co-op, but a lot of cool experiential opportunities.
Okay, so does it offer co-op for law-related careers? So as of now, if you do visit the UTM CIP page, which I do here, there's a link for it, you won't see anything specifically, I believe, listed under the Department of Sociology, but doing my own due diligence, I did find a course, Soc 480Y. So it's a full year course. You can check it out. It does say that it is an internship course for students in the criminology and law and society program. So you can check that out along with any other opportunities that might be embedded within the program itself. But on the UTM CIP program, if I'm not mistaken, there's nothing particularly listed under that department for internships.
So, hello, I applied for upper year entry as I'm transferring to UTM from U Ottawa. I'm interested in applying for on-campus residence. I'm wondering if I should apply for first year or upper year housing. So personally, I do not know much about residence. Philandra, if you want to add on anything, that would be great because I commute. So
I commute myself, but I do believe it would be on Star Res. You would be applying for upper year residency. And if I'm wrong, Yvonne can also correct me. But if I'm not mistaken, it would be upper year.
all right. So, what building is the history program in? So, the history department is located in MN. However, with every other program, you will be taking courses all throughout the campus. There's no building that is like reserved for any program. Some may be more biased. So, like being in history, you may spend a lot more time in MN and Deerfield, but that doesn't mean you will never get to explore other parts of campus, especially when you take more elective courses to fill out breadth requirements and stuff. So, yes, the department's in MN, but most of your courses will be spread all throughout campus.
Hi, when can we expect to hear back from UTM? Because I applied to 2 programs, but at different campuses. So assuming that you submitted your application by November 7, which I believe was our deadline for early acceptance applications, what will happen is the deadline for everyone to apply is January 15. But those of you who were very proactive and submitted your application by that deadline that I mentioned last fall, you can anticipate hearing back as early as February. So during January, we'll begin reviewing and revising those applications for those early applications that we got on OUAC. And if you are eligible for an offer, you can anticipate hearing back from us as early as February.
Okay, so Samil's asking, how is the UTM management different from Rotman and what is the cutoff average? So in terms of the cutoff, you are looking around mid to high 80s for a cutoff or like to be competitive for the program. And in terms of what's different, I can't give you exact differences. However, what I can say is that UTM's management program does offer a co-op. So how co-op works at UTM is that between your 3rd and 4th year, you will basically take a year off to do a 12 to 16 month internship. And they are pretty great companies. My friend is currently doing economics co-op, so it's pretty similar worlds. And she's been able to get interviews at Celestica, Scotiabank, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of cool opportunities in the UTM co-op program. And one thing I will say is one really nice thing about UTM is that you get all the benefits of being at U of T, a big research institution, a lot of cool professors doing lots of cool things, lots of great opportunities to add to your resume. But because it's a smaller school compared to like St. George, you deal with a little less competition. So you kind of get the best of both worlds by being at UTM, which is one reason why our management program is so popular. Another thing is our management program does a lot of really cool innovative things, especially in the innovation complex. So there's a lot of cool programs you can join, such as iCube, that allow you to further enhance your skills in the field and make yourself even more employable after graduation. And thank you for your question.
Okay, here we have a question. Is access to the gym and health facilities included in the tuition? Excellent question. And the answer is yes, it is included in our incidental fees, sorry. So once you pay your tuition, that is something that you can look for on the actual invoice. It does cover your access to the gym and the health facilities. So all you need is just your student card. So once you go to the gym, you just tap your student card, you enter in, and you can work out as frequent as you want to as a student here. If perhaps you're not taking or paying tuition during a semester, so for example, this summer, maybe you live close by campus and you'd still like to join the gym, then you can pay a separate fee. So that would be you just pay for the gym and you're not taking courses. But in every semester that you are taking courses and you therefore are paying tuition, then it is included in that cost. So no extra cost added to that.
My question is about English language proficiency test. Is it required to be taken before January 15th and be submitted? So if I'm correct, Yvonne, you can correct me on this. I'm pretty sure all sort of documentation, supplemental documentation is due February 2nd. So that would include something like your English language proficiency test. So it's not January 15th. That's just the application deadline. If someone wants to correct me on this, please do. But yes, February 2nd for the English test. January 15th is just your hard application.
Is residence guaranteed for first-year students? Absolutely, residence is guaranteed. You just have to do your part. So that is going on to StarRes and expressing that you are interested in living on campus by, I believe, March 31st. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that's the deadline to advocate or express interest in living on campus. And I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, there is a deposit or a fee associated with that deadline as well. So you need to pay your fee and visit StarRes by that deadline.
Okay, the next question is, does UTM have co-op for kinesiology? So thank you for your question. So UTM does not offer a kinesiology program. Kinesiology is offered at the St. George campus. So unfortunately, no, there is no co-op here. However, if it does interest you, we do have a lot of really cool human biology-based courses. So if that is something that interests you, you can look into our Biology for Health Sciences program. And in there, you can take a lot of courses on human anatomy, physiology, human development, stuff like that. So if that interests you, you can always just search up Biology for Health Sciences UTM. But other than that, no. Kinesiology would be at St. George.
Are the co-ops a given, or do I need to have a really high average? So it depends on the co-op that you are interested in. I would advise visiting the UTM CIP and clicking on the department in which you're interested in doing co-op in. There is, in fact, different prerequisites that are associated here. So for some of them, there might be a total amount of credits that you need to obtain. So some might be 4.0. For some, there might be cutoff averages. So by within or across that 4.0 credits that you've earned, you need a certain average. And then there might be specific courses that the department recommends taking before you are eligible to apply or have access to those co-op opportunities.
So the next question is, admission to programs that don't have a supplemental component guaranteed as long as you meet academic eligibility. So unfortunately, no, it's not guaranteed. However, if you do have a competitive average, that will make you competitive and give you a good chance of getting in. So I cannot say that you will get in just because you meet the average, as obviously things can change year to year. But yeah, also, from what I know, most programs don't have any sort of supplemental component. It's pretty much only computer science. So yeah, essentially, no, it's not guaranteed.
So are mature students considered differently? This question is coming from Emily. So it depends on the background or what exactly constitutes your label as a mature student. So for some students, maybe you do not have the traditional high school background. We do have a bridging pathways program. If Austin could provide the link for that. That is one option for some of our mature students. For others, all I would say, you just have to do your due diligence. And as always, the most important prerequisites to obtain are the high school one. So if you know that back in your high school days, you didn't take certain subjects, for example, for a lot of students, maybe they didn't take advanced functions, something that you might want to look into while thinking to apply is perhaps trying to get some of those credits in an accredited virtual high school, just to kind of make up your credits that are needed to get into those programs, because the high school prerequisites are kind of non-negotiable.
Okay. So the next question by Julia is, what's the tuition for first year roughly and the cost for residence? So tuition prices will depend on whether you're an Ontario student, not in Ontario, so like British Columbia, or you're an international student. So if you are in Ontario, then you're looking around $8,000 for your first year. If you're not in Ontario, you're looking around $11,000 to $15,000, and if you're international, you are looking around $60,000. And obviously, the link that Austin put on the screen, you can go there to learn more information. In terms of residence, it really does depend on the actual residence style you choose, because some are single, some you are house multiple people and are much bigger. So once again, I'd highly recommend going onto the residence website. You can just search up UTM residence or the link that Austin provided, and you'll be able to learn more about pricing there.
Okay, so let's say I retake a prerequisite course for my program in second semester of grade 12 because I got a bad grade in the first semester. Could that affect consideration towards my application? So the answer to this is that the admissions officers, they do reserve the right to have preference for students that were able to say meet. For example, maybe the cutoff grade for that course was say a 70% on their first attempt. I would say Not retaking it is definitely better than not trying to retake it. The best thing I would do is just apply and see how it goes. But as I said, they do reserve the right to have preference for students who were able to meet that cutoff grade up on the one attempt.
All right. Okay, our next question is, what is the cutoff average for the health sciences major? So for life sciences, which is the admission stream you will apply to in while you're in high school, you are looking around mid to high 80s as a cutoff, or around mid 80s as a cutoff, or to be competitive. And then in terms of getting into the health sciences major, so the way it works at UTM is in your first year, it's going to be general. You'll just be in an admissions category, say life sciences. And at the end of your first year, that's when you pick your major, specialist, or minor. And for the health sciences program, you just need a 2.5 GPA to be admitted. There's no sort of like competition at that point. As long as you have a 2.5 GPA and meet some other little prerequisites, you will be admitted into the health sciences major.
I also want to add to the previous questions from before, because I see that Yvonne brings up an excellent point that I forgot to add, that on join, there is actually a special consideration form. So for students who have any extenuating circumstances that prevented you from meeting those prerequisite cutoff grades, you can use this form to actually address any of those events that are leading up to the reason why maybe you had to retake a course, or you failed a course, or you didn't meet that grade at your initial attempt. So yeah, not all hope is lost. So please utilize this if it does apply to you. If I am a student at another university and want to transfer to another university like U of T, how easy is that? So it all depends on what prerequisites you have. So that's basically just ground zero for everybody who wants to apply. It depends on the prerequisites. As I say for everyone, first you want to start with, you look at your program and you look, what are the high school prerequisites? So first you have those high school prerequisites. And next what will happen is you will apply. We will assess those high school prerequisites. And then the second portion of your application would then be what is known as our transfer credit application. From that, what will happen for students who are coming in from other programs is you would be awarded with what we call our transfer credits. So let's say, for example, in order for you to graduate, you need a total of 20.0 credits to graduate. So perhaps when you're coming in with previous post-secondary experience, whether it be from your university or college, you can get those generic credits, or sometimes even credits that are relevant to things that would be within your field. So it kind of saves you the time of starting from where a first-year student would start from. So you come in and you have maybe 3.0 credits out of your 20.0 credits. So it's definitely not harder. It's definitely still possible as long as you do your research and know exactly where you want to get into and how to get there.
All right, so just give me one moment. So the next question is, I've submitted my application in November, but I haven't been able to take my language proficiency test. Will UTM still consider my application for early admission? So unfortunately, no, as the application won't be complete by the time early admission starts. So we do urge you to finish your English proficiency test as soon as possible, so you can still be considered for later rounds. So thank you for your question. That's a really good question. And I do see one question here. So are there any upcoming virtual webinars that are specific to certain majors such as commerce? So at the moment, I cannot say. However, I would recommend always just keeping up to date on on various UTM websites. So just typing in UTM Commerce, you can see if there's any live updates happening, or even following us on Instagram at UTM Future Students to learn more about what's going on. That way you won't be able to miss anything that is specific to your program. I also recommend coming out to March Open House. That way you can get specialized kind of presentations and stuff at every single program that you're interested in. And it seems those are like the main questions we've received. I'm just going to do a quick look through.
So while Jaskaran is looking through, I'll also like to remind you guys of different financing options that we have here at the university. So both for our domestic students and our international students, something that you want to keep in mind is that we do have some automatic entrance award scholarships. So these are scholarships that are awarded based on your academic average up on the time of admission. And I do believe for domestic students, starting as low as, or as high as, 90 of a 90 average, you do have the ability to gain a $2,000 award. award, and it goes up from 90 to mid 90s to 95 plus, in which you're able to get a $3,000 renewable scholarship. So each year you get $3,000. For international students, we also do have our International Scholars Award. That one is also automatic, so it's given contingent on your academic performance. And I do believe this one ranges over the course of 4 years from 60,000 to, I believe, up to 180,000. Once again, that is cumulative over the course of all the 4 years. If you also are not eligible for these entrance scholarships, don't be discouraged. We also have a variety of scholarships that are listed on our Award Explorer. These ones you can apply to as long as you're here. Those ones you go ahead and you apply to them on your own, so they're not automatic. And in addition to that, we also have different financing options. So students who qualify for OSAP also usually qualify for our UTAP. So UTAPs is actually the grant that is offered here by U of T. So those are things that are worth checking out. And if you're very confused about how financing will work while you're doing your undergrad, I would recommend reaching out to financial aid advisors once you become a student here. And you can find those at the Office of the Registrar, which Jaskaran mentioned in his tour. They're located in our CNEF Center.
So I do see another question here. I might have lost it. Hold on. Okay, it seems I've lost it. So I think I remember the question. It was mentioning if there is a supplemental application for the management program. If I'm correct, there is not one. If Yvonne wants to correct me, that'd be great. But yes, at the moment, there is no supplemental application for management. It's just based on grades when you're out of grade 12. And from that, I'm fairly confident that is all the questions that have been asked in the chat. So while we have some time, something I would like to mention that I would think is pretty cool. Let me see. Oh, yes. So another really cool opportunity that you can have, especially if you're someone who's interested in grad school, is ROPs. So most departments have these courses called Research Opportunity Programs that you're able to do starting in around second year. And like I said, these are offered in any department you can think of. And these are a really great opportunity to not only get credit, so they add on to your GPA and your degree requirements, but also lets you do a lot of that, get that cool experience. So you can add to your resume and you're able to join these fun presentations like the one I showed in my tour. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of really cool opportunities here that you can look out for. So yeah. And we do have some questions funneling in. So here is our next one. Philandra, you want to tackle that one?
Are there scholarships for Black students? I'm pretty sure there are, but I'm not specifically sure if there is anyone that I can name from the top of my head. I would recommend exploring the Awards Explorer there specifically, and also other departments on campus that are dedicated to perhaps different students who identify or for example, like our equity and diversity community. So you can check out those avenues for those specific scholarships. But the first starting point I would say is Awards Explorer. Why? Because it does have a filter, and using that filter, you can find scholarships of a variety of genres. So whether that be financial, whether it be identity, whatever it is, you can find it there on Awards Explorer.
All right, that was a great question. So the next question I have is, how would someone go about changing majors? So a really nice thing about UTM is that changing majors isn't like the hardest thing in the world because of how the I guess school is structured. It's very easy to kind of like flow in and out of programs. So it would pretty much just be as simple as making sure you have the enrollment requirements for a certain major and then be simply just requesting to enroll in it. Some programs do not have this opportunity, such as things like forensic science, because those are like type 3 programs are much more competitive. It's like something you need to do right out of first or second year. There's not really opportunities to switch. But like if you wanted to go from biology to chemistry, that would be fairly easy. Just making sure you have the enrollment requirements, which you can just search up on the UTM academic calendar, which is shows right here. And then making sure when you have those, just requesting to enroll at the end of first year or at the end of the academic year. So that was a great question. So the next question we have is here. What is the general acceptance rate for the English program? So I cannot give you an acceptance rate. However, I will say that a competitive average you're looking at is around mid to high 70s. And then once you're in the English stream, well, it would be through the humanities stream. So you're looking around mid to high 70s. And then once you're in the humanities stream, getting into the English program, isn't that hard. It is a type 2 program, which means that there's unlimited enrollment, so as many people can enroll in the program, just making sure you have the requirements, which I'm fairly which you can find on the academic calendar if you just type in English major UTM academic calendar, or if Austin provides a link, you can also look at that. Philandra, if you want to tackle this question.
Yep. Okay, so could you drop the link to the special consideration form for retaking a course? So that one specifically, you would find that on your Join U of T portal. Are you familiar? You can just drop this in the chat if you're familiar with the Join U of T portal. Once you've submitted your application and you went through the process on OUAC, you should gain access to the Join U of T portal. So once you scroll through the website, at the bottom there, you should see a specific heading for that special consideration, and there you should find a form that you'll be able to click on and access. Yvonne, you can correct me. I'm not too sure if there's a deadline or a date in which this form becomes visible to our applicants. I think it should be visible if now for those who need it. But if there's a specific date, Yvonne, could you please help me with stating what that specific date is when applicants would be able to see the form?
Right. Philandra, if you want to tackle this question.
Yep. So what do I do if I don't find out if I got into UTM before the residency March deadline? Okay. Okay, so what do I do? I'm not too sure about this one. I don't know if Yvonne could offer any additional feedback on this one.
And also you can just see that link, and maybe you can go to that link to find any more information. And it does say, so we just found out here, you are able to still apply to residency. However, you will not be guaranteed a spot. So that is something to just keep in mind as we progress through the year. All right. Just seeing if there's any more questions in the chat that we haven't answered. So is the January 15th deadline for all programs, or are there spring applications? So yes, January 15th is for all programs. We don't do any spring applications. It's pretty much you apply from October to January, and then people who start out, they always start out in September. So there's nothing that happens after June and whatever. And with that being said, I do think that so someone actually mentioned the special consideration form is available to the Join U of T portal. So if any of you missed that, that is thank you for adding that into the chat. Is the application for university similar to jobs? If we don't get in, we won't hear back. So you will hear back. What usually happens is you'll get an email saying something has updated in your U of T portal, and then you can see, and it'll essentially say admitted or refused. So you will know if you didn't get in, if that just gives you some kind of I don't know what the word, but just some confirmation. We won't ghost you or anything. So yeah. And we are approaching 7 p.m. So I think, and I don't see any more questions at the moment. So I do think that brings us to the end. We will wait to see if any other questions trickle in. Philandra, if you want to answer this question.
It depends on what your application looked like. I wouldn't say that you would only be rejected in June. You can get a decision as early as the application that you submitted allows us to give you a decision. So for some people, for example, the ones who apply during that early rounds of applications, an advantage that we usually tell students about when you do the early application is that you get to have your application revised in January. And maybe at that point, perhaps your application, we see that it's not definitive for us to give you a decision. So maybe you get a decision a bit later on, whereas students who apply in the later rounds of application, you kind of just have that one round. You don't really get your application reviewed during that January time. So that final decision will be that final decision. I won't say that June is the designated time for rejections. If your application does not meet the standard, then you'll get the rejection on that rolling basis whenever that decision is made.
Okay, and thank you for your question. That's also a great question. So we'll just see if anyone else has like one final question. And let me just peruse through the chat, see if there's anything we missed. So I do see two final questions here I think we can answer. So first off, for tutorial time, what would a history major do? So once again, this really does depend on the course. Like from one history course to another, it could be wildly different. So I cannot really say, but one thing I would recommend is once you're in, once you're officially enrolled in the school and like you have like your login information and everything, one thing I would always recommend is you can literally just search up UTM course syllabus archive, and you can literally see all the syllabi from past courses and see how the courses are structured. So it's very easy to navigate if you literally just like search into Google UTM course syllabus archive once you're in the school, because you need to log in to access it. You will be able to see how every course is structured and see like whether that kind of makes you want to take a course or maybe sways you away from a course. So yeah, I would recommend keeping that in the back of your mind if you're interested in coming here, the UTM course syllabus archive.
I can take the last question as we wrap up. So the very last question here, thank you for this question, by the way, is the Office of the Registrar available for help with planning and questions if you have accepted an offer from the university? So the answer is yes, but as I would say, we have two offices and they're based on the stage of your application that you're in. So before you come in, you can still contact our office and ask us those preliminary questions. But once you're beginning to look at transition into starting school in September, the Office of the Registrar, they also do host a series of webinars, just like how we have this webinar here. Those webinars are geared towards topics such as, for example, course enrollment and all those key things that you would need as you're entering into your first year. And I'll kind of just drop this since as we're just ending off, just to give you guys a little bit of tips on things that you might want to look at when you reach that point. In addition to that, you might also attend things such as our orientation, such as Eagle Connect. Things like these are set in place to help you with planning and just setting you up for a smooth transition into your first year. So you have us, you have Eagle Connect, you have Office of the Registrar, along with a lot of different planning tools catered to our first year incoming students. So I want to conclude, that is our last question for the night. I want to conclude by saying thank you all for joining us and sticking around. A lot of excellent questions here today. I hope we're able to address your questions to the best of our abilities. And if you feel like you leave today and you still have more questions, not to worry. You can contact our office either by phone or email, or if you're close by, you can visit us in person. We do love drop-ins. And just a reminder, we do have our upcoming March open house. So that's something that you might want to also check out. As Jaskaran said, the advantage is getting that opportunity to meet with those specific department faculties and kind of get those nuanced answers to your specific questions. So thank you all for joining us. And I hope you all have a great rest of your night or day, wherever you're joining from today.
Yeah, thanks for coming, guys. And we hope to invite you to UTM in September.
Yeah.